What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Islam Makhachev's next UFC move leaked? Since Islam Makhachev's win over Renato Moicano, there's been no real news on when the champion will be back in action. At the same time, the division still doesn't have a clear-cut #1 contender, given that Dana White said that Arman Tsarukyan will have to earn his crack at the title once again. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. With Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, and Ilia Topuria looking to compete for the title, the UFC has plenty of options at the table. But according to what Money Moicano's hearing, the champion might be waiting to see how things play out between Belal Muhammad and Jack Della Maddalena before deciding his next move. During an all-new video for his YouTube channel, Moicano spoke about the situation in Portuguese. Islam Makhachev is waiting on the Jack Della Maddalena versus Belal Muhammad fight. He's hoping JDM beats Belal Muhammad so he can fight for the 170-pound belt. That'll leave the lightweight belt vacant and they'll have to do something. Money Moicano's not the only one to predict that the Muhammad JDM fight has big implications on Makhachev's next move. Last month, Ariel Helwani suggested the same thing during his show, saying that if Belal loses to JDM, Islam Makhachev would finally have a chance to move up and fight for another belt. In the meantime, the champion's working on new moves in the gym and was seen smothering his training partner in a video shared online. The same idea was discussed by Charles Oliveira's manager and coach Diego Lima and Eurosport MMA reporter Alvaro Colmenero this week during an interview. Colmenero quoted Lima as saying, "If Belal didn't win the May fight, he would have a chance to move up a weight class and we would be left with Topuria and Charles. But if Belal wins, he would stay at lightweight. And we'd have to see with the UFC who would be, Topuria or Charles, because it depends on UFC and Islam." The way he sees things, the lightweight title will likely be up for grabs this summer at the UFC's International Fight Week card, but who will be fighting for the belt remains a mystery. This fight will happen at International Fight Week, which will be huge. I think Makhachev, Topuria, and Charles should fight there. But to know in this triangle who against who will be a little bit more complicated. We care a lot about the belt. We want that belt. He told me he wants to fight in June, but if we don't have the BMF or the title, I wouldn't know if we would fight. Maybe Justin Gaethje, who has made a great fight and sells a lot, or a new fight with Dustin Poirier, who sells a lot. Charles has to fight fighters who are big. From the sounds of things, Oliveira and his team are in active negotiations with the UFC, with the goal being to get 2 fights in before the end of the year. The last meeting was 10 days ago and they told me that they were looking at things, that they were pending some negotiations, but they wanted something very big for Charles Oliveira because he's a person who is very big and sells a lot. Charles wants International Fight Week. He wants to fight twice this year. Fighting on June 28 would give him room to fight again at the end of the year. Meanwhile, Arman Tsarukyan may have just booked himself his next fight. After Justin Gaethje, or rather someone on Gaethje's account who fans suspect is Ali Abdelaziz, called for a title shot, Tsarukyan responded, "You barely got past number 11 on short notice. And before that, you got sent to the Shadow Realm. If you really want to be the #1 contender and fight for the title, you have to go through me first." During an interview with Helen Yee, Tsarukyan then revealed that he's targeting a return in either April or May. But so far, Gaethje has not responded to the call-out. Alex Pereira on UFC 313 loss and talks rematch. This past weekend, Magomed Ankalaev brought Alex Pereira's reign to an end as he picked up a decision victory to capture UFC gold. Although all 3 judges scored the fight for Ankalaev, Glover Teixeira is not buying it. During a video released on Pereira's YouTube channel on Wednesday, Teixeira spoke about the fight, saying that in his opinion, Pereira won. "We had this defeat, but in my opinion, he won," Teixeira said. "He lost on points, so now we go back to the drawing board and adjust a few things, train hard, and go back and get this rematch and make history. Poatan's made history before, and he will make history again. He's a great warrior, and I'm very proud of him." Plinio Cruz then added that the loss will only help Pereira to evolve and take his game to the next level. "Rivalries make us grow. It went his way this time, so we'll train more, study more, get better to deliver you a better version of Poatan, more mean. What this guy's done was make it worse for him because he'll now fight Poatan 2.0. It's happened to Poatan before, it's not the first time, and a true champion is the one that stumbles but continues moving forward and reconquers it. Poatan will reconquer the title in the rematch, a more mean version, and our team will be on a level that is higher than it already is." Pereira also spoke about the loss, saying he's got no excuses and is looking forward to the rematch. Of course, it's not the result I was expecting. I was very confident for this fight. I was good. I trained hard. Some things happen, of course, but I don't want to give excuses. I know there will be a rematch. They're talking about it already. The way the fight was, many people contested the decision and had their doubts. I still haven't watched the fight yet. Magomed continues to call out Alex Pereira for a rematch on X. He said the following last night: I'm ready for round 6, but this time we'll not go for full distant. Let's go, guys. After Pereira gets his immediate rematch, Jan Blachowicz is hoping that he winds up in position to run things back with the champion for the belt. During an appearance on the Ariel Helwani show this week, he outlined his ideal path to retirement. I beat Olberg, then I take title shot against Magomed Ankalaev. I beat Ankalaev and then rematch against Pereira. I defend the belt against Pereira. Perfect scenario for me. Then I can go to the mountains again. While some members of the MMA community use Magomed Ankalaev's failed takedown attempts against him, Anthony Smith defended the newly crowned champion on his own podcast, On Paper with Anthony Smith. Ankalaev is an absolute liar. He in fact did wrestle, which was very, very smart. I'm not complaining about him wrestling. It's just that it's not what he said he was going to do. But you probably should wrestle. That's probably got to be the number one thing in your arsenal. Listen, a failed takedown isn't a failure. Pereira was kind of rolling through the first round. He looked super comfortable. He looked like he was having a good time. He seemed to have his own range down. He looked sharp until the wrestling started. Pereira spends the next 21 minutes worried when Ankalaev is going to level change. Either he's not as bad of a wrestler as you guys say he is, or Magomed Ankalaev's not as good of a wrestler as you guys say he is. With an immediate rematch in the works, we'll have to wait and see. Paddy Pimblett responds to Dustin Poirier's comments. After the Paddy Pimblett-Michael Chandler fight got announced, Dustin Poirier was asked how he sees the fight going by a fan on social media. Responding to this, the former interim champ said that although he doesn't like Chandler, fans should hammer the money line for the fight. During an interview with Papa Legaspi released this week, Pimblett fired back. He said something about me the other day. Didn't he saying like it's legends only? And you think Chandler will beat me, so if he does retire, I think he should have more than one fight. He looked good in his last fight. I mean, I don't understand why you retire when you look good, but you know he must be an idiot. But yeah, I think I beat Dustin Poirier, so I'd love to fight him. With Poirier on his way out, the odds of the fight happening are pretty slim, even if the baddie winds up getting the win over Michael Chandler. So far, no word yet on who Poirier will fight before riding off into the sunset. However, it sounds like despite the former interim champion's comments, Pimblett respects him as a fighter. Dana White releases UFC fighter. In the wake of a loss to Marquel Medeiros on the Dolice Imavov card last February, Landon Quiñones has been removed from the UFC's active roster. At the beginning of the year, a full year since his loss to Medeiros, Quiñones announced that he was stepping away from fighting in an emotional Instagram post. I have made a decision to take a step away from fighting. It hurts to have to do this, but this sport has taken more out of me than a normal person can fathom, to the point to where I can't even focus on the tasks in front of me. I love martial arts, and as it has taken so much out of me, it has also given me unforgettable experiences and opportunity. I need a break to find my love for it again and to give myself security. This is not a retirement post. I'm 29 years old and have plenty left in the tank, but I gotta get my together. Sometimes you need to take a few steps back to take giant leaps forward. When I'm secure, I'm coming for everyone's head. See y'all soon. While he made it clear that he was not retiring, it sounds like the UFC's decided to part ways with Quiñones. Additionally, in the wake of his loss on this past weekend's Ankalaev Pereira card, Jalen Turner has decided to hang up the gloves. After initially announcing his decision backstage, Turner followed it up with a post on Instagram while leaving the door open for a return. Thank you for all the love and support. I started training MMA at 18 in 2013. I started training in my backyard, a SoCal LA born IE raised kid with no path and a big dream. God opened the door to MMA when I didn't know where else to go. I gave myself 4 years to fight in a big promotion, and I did then. The 5th year, I got the UFC in 2018, made it to the top 10 in the toughest division. I made it in a video game. Looking back, it doesn't feel real. I love you all. I'm sorry I lost my focus and fire earlier than ever expected. 29 years young, time is on my good side. I wish I could reply to everyone's messages. Just know all the positivity has helped me more than you all know. I appreciate it all. Things can change. We'll see what the future holds. As both fighters look towards the future, the support of the MMA community is definitely behind them. Marvin Vettori goes off on Brendan Allen. Ahead of this weekend's card at the Apex, Marvin Vettori took some time to fire shots at Brendan Allen during Media Day on Wednesday. The two have been at odds for a while now, ever since they were set to fight back in April last year. At the time, Vettori wound up getting forced out of the fight because of an injury. A couple months later, they were involved in an altercation after the PFL 8 event, with Allen dropping Vettori with a 1-2 combo. The altercation wound up getting caught on camera, but because of YouTube's guidelines, we unfortunately can't show it. Now, ahead of Vettori's fight with Roman Dolice this weekend, he went off on Allen after his loss to Anthony Hernandez last month.
It's not even that relevant. No, to be honest, he was going up. I knew it wasn't going to go past the top 5. So I was kind of wanted to be smart a little bit, where let me get it. He has a bit of hype. It's coming from 5-6 wins. And I want to be the one that gave him a loss, But now he's got 2 losses. He was trying to look over me. And look what happened, If I want another easier, not easy, but easier fight, maybe. If not, if I want to really get into with the big boys up there, then I'll easily skip him. To be honest, it's almost waste breath to me talking about him.
Although he's currently ranked 8th, Vettori told Pavel Virobek this week that he'll capture UFC gold and become the first Italian champion. As always, we want to send a huge shout out to Pavel for allowing us to use this clip.
I think it's very deep. The level of competition got higher. A lot of good fighters, not gonna lie, like a lot of tough fights. But that excites me, that's good. That's good. That means you have to raise the bar in the middleweight division, that's for sure. And that's why I have to raise the bar for myself too. And because if you don't get better, you're gonna get crushed. You're not gonna become champion, I believe. I think it's very deep. We have good fighters, and it's good. I'm excited. I'm gonna show that I'm a real contender, and I'm gonna be number one, first Italian champion. But step by step, Now all my focus, it starts with Saturday. I have to put on a great performance on Saturday, and then we'll go from there.
With Allen ranked 10th, depending on what happens this weekend, a rescheduled fight between the two makes sense. UFC updates. Ahead of this weekend's Vettori-Dolidze card, let's look at today's UFC updates. Starting with the change to the Fight Night card on May 17th. The event was originally expected to take place in Qatar, but Marcel Dorf is saying that it's now going to be taking place in the Apex. Along with moving the location, the UFC's also reportedly booked fights between Johnny Walker and Azamat Murzakanov and Curtis Blades and Rizvan Kuniv for this card. The Walker-Murzakanov fight will see Walker look to snap a 2-fight losing streak that most recently saw him lose to Volkan Oezdemir back in June, while Murzakanov will look to build on a 4-fight winning streak that most recently saw him finish Alonzo Menifield in the second round last August. In the case of the Blades-Kuniv fight, this is a rebooking after Blades wound up forced off this past weekend's pay-per-view card at the last minute. This will be the third time that these two have been booked to fight, so hopefully this is actually going to take place. Last but not least, we got Billy Goff looking for a fight. In a post on social media on Wednesday, he shared a picture of a worn-down UFC duffel bag along with the caption, "Yo, UFC, my bag is worn out. About time for me to retire it, so get me a fight so I can get a new one." Goff has been out of action since May, when he dropped a decision to Trey Waters. Since then, he's had 2 fights fall through. Late last night, the UFC revealed some huge fights. The UFC revealed their Des Moines card in Iowa, which is taking place on May 3rd, and it's stacked. It's important to note that the UFC is returning to Des Moines after 25 years. For the main event, we have a 5-round fight between Davison Figueiredo and Corey Sandhagen. With both fighters coming off a loss, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. The UFC also revealed Bo Nickel versus Reinier de Ridder, which seems like the co-main event for the card. An amazing fight for both fighters. At the moment, Bo Nickel isn't ranked, and RDR is currently number 13 in the middleweight division. This is a huge fight for Nickel to get into the top 15 ranking. Moving on, we have a shocking UFC return. Jeremy Stephens is back in the UFC and is fighting on this card against Mason Jones. We don't think anyone expected this. Stephens was in BKFC and got a huge win over Eddie Alvarez, and we're guessing the UFC was impressed and re-signed him. What do you guys think about all these fights? Let us know down in the comment section below. Justin Gaethje reveals sad news. In a recent episode of Behind the Curtains of UFC 313 on YouTube, Justin Gaethje revealed that his toes are injured following the fight. And before we continue, we have a favor to ask. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers on MMA Zone by subscribing and turning on notifications for daily MMA content. Seriously, we rarely miss a day. In his brawl with Rafael Fiziev, Gaethje managed to either break or sprain some of his toes during the fight. Usually, toe injuries are a quick recovery, but if Gaethje broke his toes, he's looking to be sidelined from training for at least 4 to 6 weeks at the bare minimum. Could this possibly hurt his chances of getting a title shot since Islam Makhachev wants to fight in the summer this year? Like we mentioned, Gaethje could be out for at least 4 to 6 weeks at minimum, and then training camp is usually 6 to 8 weeks. If everything goes right, the earliest he'll be able to return is in June. So let's hope the damage isn't too bad, and that Gaethje can return to a potential title fight soon.